Disruptors, and welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery Moments with yours truly, Dr. Alisa Whyte. Today, I am so excited to have this conversation with a phenomenal guest, but I have a question for you. Have you been feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit stressed, just a little bit uneasy, or just, I don't know what this funky energy is? Well, I kind of been running into that a lot, and I'm pretty sure our guest today, who I get to introduce you to in just a couple of minutes, has heard that quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I know he's had his own experience with that. But here's a little bit of thing. If you're feeling a little blue, did you know that according to the American Institute of Stress, over 77% of people experience stress that affects both their physical health, and nearly 33% of them report extreme stress. Chronic stress has been linked to a host of issues, from heart disease to diminished mental health and clarity, and that makes more issues that bring us to the importance of innovative ways to address and resolve stress, not just so we can get by, but to go to the root and the core of it. Well, as you see, I have a radiant guest here in the studio with me today on Mindset Mastery Moments, who knows all about stress and exactly how to combat that. Joining us is Mr. Christopher Lee Maher. Christopher, it is just so exciting to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. That was a great intro.
Thank you. But listen, I've got to tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you and your background and how you came into this world of the true body intelligence, which that's just phenomenal. I can't wait to get into it.
Okay.
But here's a little bit about our guest, Christopher. He is a retired U.S. Navy SEAL, and thank you so much, sir, for your service. He is also a best-selling author and a holistic wellness pioneer. Christopher has dedicated his life to unraveling the complexities of stress and, of course, I'm going to say it, healing. That's our favorite part, right? Helping countless individuals transform their lives through his groundbreaking true body intelligence methodology. His own journey began with the extreme physical toll of his SEAL career, leading to chronic pain, health issues that pushed him to the brink. His perseverance and quest for full holistic healing birthed the revolutionary paradigm for stress resolution and total integration. Chris, once again, it's an awesome pleasure to have you on Mindset Mastery Moments, and it's clear your personal story is as profound as the work you have developed. But before I dive into true body intelligence with you, can you tell us about yourself and why you do what you do?
I do what I do because I love it. I mean, seeing people's lives change, seeing people who are struggling with something that's very complex and suffering in some way that's unnecessary, allows me to use my mind, allows me to use my energy, allows me to use my body, allows me to use my emotions and my passion for living to be able to help them create a quality life.
Wow. Just walk us through a little bit of the background. How did you even get on the journey to desiring to create something so unique and well needed, not just by you, but of course you served it to the rest of the world?
I think what happened for me, and I always like to be upfront and honest in this sense, is that I was never looking to change the world, right? I was somebody at the time when I was 27 years old. I was looking to see what I could get for myself from the world, right? And even though I was sweet, I was always generous, I was always kind, I was always up for anything, I wasn't up for changing the world in the way that I am now, because I had no idea that the world needed changing in these ways. And when you have pain in your body, I know as someone who's a Navy SEAL, it's something you kind of keep to yourself, because you're indoctrinated in a certain way to never complain, to never moan, and to never whine. And if you don't mind being in pain, keep shooting towards your goal.
Yes.
Because the mind is stronger than the body.
Mm.
And that was true for a while. And then at some point, I found out really quickly that the mind might be strong, but the body has limitations.
Mm.
And I was overtraining constantly. I was up too late at night. I was in school full time, and I had a goal. My goal was to get to Olympic trials, and I was strained in every direction of my life. And yet, because my stress resilience was so high, I
Mhm.
had no clue that eventually one day this would lead to unrelenting pain.
Wow. Wow.
And I was ignorant and I was naive. And yet I was full of energy and my mind was clear in the sense that if you gave me information that made more sense than the information that I had gathered, I was always open to going down a different avenue and putting an old door closed. And so when the pain first came into my body, I did what I think most men do. We kind of suck it up and
Yeah.
just kind of keep moving along.
Yeah.
And fortunate for me, I got in a car accident. Some
Mm.
guy came ripping down a hill, going about 40 plus miles an hour. I was at a stoplight. He ran through the light and crashed into my car. And that event caused all the pain on the left side of my body to get shoved into the middle of my left hip. And then, rather than it being intermittent and somewhat chronic, it was unrelenting discomfort. So whether I was sitting, whether I was running, hopping, jumping, lifting, squatting, lunging, the discomfort was always there. So there was no way to get away from it. And I did probably what I would consider the most courageous thing I'd ever done my whole life. I reached out and I asked for help. Because before that time, that was something that was foreign to me.
Right.
You know, you're a man, you figure things out.
You do. Yeah.
And no matter what I did on my own, no matter how much stretching I did, all the basic things that you could do, none of it went away. And a friend came to my house who I called, and he brought a yoga mat, he brought a juicer. And he was getting in these fanciful yogic postures that I was unable to get into even one. And as if it was frustrating for me, I think it was comical for him.
Yeah.
And he finally, in the end, said, look, you need to get into structural integration and find a rolfer. And a rolfer is someone who uses their elbows and their forearms and a lot of pressure to work on your connective tissue called fascia.
Mm.
And I found one. It took me a while. I finally got a little bit of relief. And I was happy for the relief. And yet eventually, after those 11 sessions were over, things started to creep back in a bit. And then I realized that, oh, well, that isn't a permanent solution.
Yeah.
Yet I was still grateful for the experience. And that led me to the next thing. And then the next thing led me to the next thing. And the next thing led me to the next thing for about 2 years solid. And then at one point I woke up one morning, I thought, I'm going to start doing it all simultaneously. Maybe that'll be the thing that works. I'll get
Yeah.
the acupuncture done. I'll do the acupressure. I'll go to hot yoga. I'll do Feldenkrais. I'll do the Gaskin method. I'll continue to receive structural integration work. And that's what I was doing. And I thought things were moving along. And I started to feel a greater amount of distance from the debilitating states of discomfort that my body was in. And then one day I got an email from a friend I went to boarding school with named Mark Pershbalija. And it said, look, I found this guy. He's got 5 stretches that will change your life. And I'm thinking, I got it together. Why don't you take these 5 stretches and change your life? Like, who the hell are you to be emailing me that I need to change my life? Like, you're 5 years younger than me. Like, come on.
Get it together, dude.
Yeah. And I ignored his message. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from one of my clients at the time, a young woman named Maddie. And she said, hey, I saw this guy in Good Morning America. He's got 5 stretches that'll change your life. And I thought, no, she said, I saw this guy in Good Morning America. And I said to her, let me guess, he's got 5 stretches that'll change my life. And she goes, did you see the episode? And I was like, no, but I'm starting to get the point. And then I went and I tracked this guy down. Took me a bit, took a while. And I went up and I saw him. And he worked on me for around 6 to 8 hours a day for 4 days in a row. And after that, all my pain was gone. And I was like very happy with that investment of time, energy, effort, and resources. But simultaneously, I could feel myself getting upset because I spent all that time, I spent all that energy, I spent all that effort, and I spent all that money. And if I needed to go a mile, they took me an inch. Okay? And I needed to go like 100 miles, but at least this guy got me 10 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Right? And then he was able to teach me things that I could do to myself. And I like that idea because I'm more a fan of interdependent relationships.
Yes. That is the healthiest form.
Yeah. Versus the one we see in the current model in holistic and allopathic Western medicine.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a lot of peace in my heart, yet it gave me a path forward. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go back home and I worked on everything he taught me 5 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Every chance I got, because I could feel it getting a little better and a little better and a little better. Yeah. So rather than only the discomfort being gone, I started to notice that my energy was increasing. I started to notice my anxiety was decreasing. I started to notice that my communication was more clear. I started to notice that my mind was more clear.
Wow.
And that my body was getting even more comfortable, even stronger. And so I decided within a short amount of time that I was going to devote my life to this. Wow. And so I abandoned what I was doing for work and I shifted in this direction. And that was 2001. June like 15th, 16th, I made that decision.
Wow. And you remember it distinctly. I love the specificity. That speaks into the fact that it was definitely a life-changing moment for you. Yeah. And especially when you're coming from that journey of pain and you're starting to realize so much clarity and sort of, I would say, healing in a holistic way. You remember, you won't forget. So let's talk about TBI and the science behind that. So that it's TBI for those who are listening. I don't know if anyone calls it that, but that's
yeah, that's what I call it.
Very nice. It stands for True Body Intelligence. Yes.
Yeah. True Body Intelligence was born out of necessity for myself.
Yes. Best.
And so my investigation turned into a vocation.
Wow.
And then that transformation led to a desire for greater education, which is what caused me to decide to produce all the material and all the data that I'm putting into the world so that people who are in a difficult position like me, the stuff that they're doing is less than efficient relative to what their real desire is, then they hopefully, they can find me and they can find the work and they can find some inspiration and get some education and make some of their own levels of transformation. And so True Body Intelligence is a suite of systems. And each system addresses a different layer of the human experience. And so, you and I are at a great privilege because of the time that we're in. If we go back 200 years ago, it was very difficult to find anyone in the world who was having a conversation around emotional intelligence.
Right.
it was a very difficult conversation to find someone 100 years ago talking about physical intelligence,
Right.
right? It was even more difficult to find someone speaking about spiritual intelligence. Very easy to strike up a conversation about religion, very
Religion.
difficult to
Different.
strike up a conversation around spiritual intelligence because it
Yes.
was unsafe at that time to venture out on your own
Or
and
think
decide what
outside of
the
the
box,
box.
and then create your own identity around, or your own value system around what spirituality meant to you. And so at True Body Intelligence, we address all bodies, right? We address the physical body through specific movements that we teach you to do on yourself. We
Mm-hmm.
have another system called eye-centric strength, which are specific movements that we do on you, so we assist you, so
Mm-hmm.
you can generate more force and create more change. And then we have a system that addresses all the energetic bodies, the chakras, the nadis, the electromagnetic channels, specific types of breath work. And then we have work that addresses the mental body, quieting the mind, calming it all down. And so if you quiet your mind, you have massive amounts of energy in your system, your body's super comfortable and strong, and your emotions are grounded. Do you
Yeah.
think it's easy to develop a really powerful life that you love consistently?
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
1000%. And
Yeah.
so I'm more of an amalgamated being, which means I have a high level of emotional intelligence, I have a high level of kinesthetic awareness, I have a high level of analytical intelligence, and I have a high level of spiritual energetic intelligence. And so for me, I want to create systems that allow everyone to be able to grow in whatever ways in which they want, right?
Right.
And so
Question.
this,
What did you describe yourself as? I want to make sure we caught
an
that.
amalgamated being.
Okay, it's alchemy. Coming
Yeah.
from alchemy, right?
Yeah. And so, when you're amalgamated, you're, rather than relying on one source of intelligence, you're able to
Mm.
rely on many sources of intelligence because each
Mm.
moment is different. And for me, amalgamated beings are most interested in serving what the moment is asking for, no more or no less.
Wow, I love
And
that.
yeah, and that takes a certain level of mastery. That takes a certain mindset,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that takes a certain letting go of expectations
Mm.
that you were raised with because of the ideals that were hammered into you in your childhood that no longer resonate or vibrate to who it is you truly are as an incarnate soul.
Whew. Okay. All right. You're going to have to rewind that a little bit, but I'm going to pick through it because you're speaking language that speaks to my soul. And I'm pretty sure there's several of our viewers and listeners are going to experience that and be like, I don't know what he just said, but it sounds so right to me and my soul, right? And that's what I mean. I get an idea because in my own journey, maybe I'm on the journey of getting to be a being like you because I can't say the word. I have to see it
Being an
phonetically.
amalgamated being. Everyone can
Amalgamated.
be an amalgamated being. They only need the right tools.
They need the right tools. So
That's
I
it.
feel like I've been on this journey spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally for a while. So tell us, when you talk about letting go of how you were raised to, that's one of the biggest things for me, or what you were taught. I always talk about true values, core beliefs, and making that shift. What does that look like, Christopher?
I mean, what it looks like for me on a daily basis versus a
Mm-hmm.
yearly basis is quite different. On a daily basis, what it means is this: it means getting into different positions and postures and activating the inherent intelligence and consciousness that lives inside of each and every single organ in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And going and seeing many different practitioners every single week to continue to elevate my vibration. So whether that's esoteric acupuncture, whether that's holotropic breathing, whether that's rolfing, whether that's deep tissue massage, whether that's 5-element acupuncture, whether that's going to the gym and working out, whether that's going to a yoga class, like a sound healing class, always continuing to add value to my life by allowing other people who have high forms of intelligence to come in and help me shed another layer of fear, help me
Mm,
shed another layer of anxiety, help me
mm,
shed another layer of self-righteousness, and help me
mm.
shed another layer of anger, frustration, agitation, and irritation so that I can become a more cohesive reflection of love.
Woo. Talk about the two forces, fear or love, and someone's like, ah, I don't believe it. We're always moving towards the spectrum, and we can go higher and higher towards back to love, a return to love. My other question, which you so well explained, you mentioned a word of that is a hot topic in my head, and in many of the conversations I find myself in the last few weeks, and that is letting go of expectation.
Yes.
When you say that, what do you mean?
What I mean is that expectation always leads you away from the light. Okay. And so the moment is the master, meaning whatever is occurring is in reality. Whatever you wanted to occur versus what actually happened is a fantasy. And so you have to let go of fantasy and accept reality, because reality is never determined by one being, because everything is a co-created process, meaning that when you go to eat, you have to co-create with forks and knives and pans and bowls. When you go to the bathroom, you have to co-create with toilet paper and the toilet seat. When you shower, you got to co-create with shampoo and soap and sponges and brushes. When you want to travel to the bank, you got to co-create with your car or your tennis shoes or your skateboard or your bicycle. Like every single thing, every single element of actionable steps taken towards love, light, or fear and shadow is delivered through a co-created process. And
Wow.
so when I'm viewing something from the outside and I'm judging it, and I'm criticizing it, and I'm disapproving of it, and I'm taking an overly moralizing position over that thing, I'm saying that I know better than reality. And the reality is you're triggered and you're upset. And the only reason why you are triggered and you are upset is because your measure of expectation was greater than reality. And then you have to ask yourself,
Realize now.
yeah, why do you want to compete with God?
Ooh! You're gonna lose every time.
You're
Well,
going
I
to
don't
lose
want to
every
be.
time,
If you're gonna
right?
do a competition, you're never gonna win. Oh, no.
Yeah, because reality is what occurs in the moment. A
Ooh,
fantasy is what occurs on. If I want fantasy, that's why I go to movies, because I enjoy fantasy, right?
right.
They give me inspiration, they give me motivation to figure out how to maybe do things in a better way, right? How to be
Yes.
more communicative, how to be more vulnerable, how to be
Right.
more transparent, how to be more honest, how to be more emotional.
That is our motivation, but someone might be motivated for how to be more manipulative.
Yeah, for sure. Like whatever makes you happy, right? I'm
Right.
never here to judge or criticize or
Neither am I, but
disapprove because
it
I have
is.
no idea what your soul is meant to transition through.
Ooh, wow.
And darkness and shadow, they're very potent energies.
And there's part of the co-creation process,
That's
according
right.
to what you described earlier. Ah, love it.
Yes. There's always light and there's always darkness, right?
And
There's
it's
always light,
and
there's
there's
always
no
shadow.
light without darkness.
There's no light without darkness, there's no darkness
It's
without light,
without light.
right? Because light is what creates love, right? Light is information. And so what people have to understand is that in the beginning, before there was light, there was only love. And though we have light, which means that we have a co-creative force, a full spectrum of light that allows us to drive intention through it, in the end, the only thing that will ever matter is love. And light is the framework for us to be able to experience the love of God.
To tell you, I don't know. I think it's been about 13 or 14 years. I read A Return to Love by Marionette. And I've read it at least 3 times over the last 13 years. And I'm due for another reading.
Mm.
But that shook the core of everything that I sort of believe in as a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
But it also felt so right. And I remember reading the book and having guilt because I heard about it on the Oprah show. And it was derivative, it's like a rewrite of this other book that Christians were forbid. I'm not even going to go with it, but that's what was my journey with the book. But it just felt right for me. Even when I try to unmask and unravel Jesus, who was in my mind as a child, who I wanted to emulate, I wanted to be just like Jesus. So it's like all I want. I didn't care too much about all the church stuff and all the politics. I just wanted to be like Jesus. He went around doing good. He fed people. People were changed, transformed, healed. And these were things I wanted to facilitate on the earth. And I wanted that ever since I was like a little girl, and it never changed. Even as a grown woman now, it's still that's still what I live after. The question I have for you, when you talk about expectations, you so articulately, I'm going to have a good time listening to this episode over and over again. Does that mean in a relationship? And then I'm going to use a personal scenario and let you reflect back to me.
Sure.
Let's say, you're married, your partner, you're married to someone.
Sure.
Do you have expectations of them making sure that they pay the bills? Do you have expectations that they do clean up after themselves? Or should we be working towards welcoming that they do that, but not expecting it, so to speak? How do you approach the things that are like, we need to expect people to do what they said?
Well, I think what it is one, having clear agreements, right? And having realistic expectations. So let's say you marry a man who his mother cleaned up after him his whole life. Okay? And now he's married to you, and he's applying the same strategies that he applied when he was under her care.
For 30-something years or
For
so.
30 years, right? So then what's going to happen is you're going to be bothered by that.
Yeah.
And so in your bother, you have to ask yourself a question. And the question is, do people change overnight? And the answer is typically no. And so then what you're going to have to do is be willing to have that conversation again and again and again to your own benefit. Okay? And the reason why you have to have that conversation is because a healthy brain needs to hear things 9 to 32 times in order to grok a concept. That's a healthy brain. That's a brain that's never had sugar, never had alcohol, never had pharmaceutical drugs, never had recreational drugs, never had food colorings, never had preservatives. Okay?
I'm laughing because you said a healthy brain. I'm like, okay, this is going to be hard.
Right. Good luck finding a brain like that.
They're probably 2 months old.
Okay, yeah.
And even then, they're probably giving them sugar already.
Yeah. Okay, so with that in mind, then you have to be realistic in your expectations. You go, look, well, I'm on a dense planet, okay? The minds are dense, the bodies are dense, the emotions are dense, and the energy's dense. So what's a realistic expectation for me to have with my partner, who I know was taken care of by his mom his whole life? She cooked all of his food, she washed his laundry, she picked up his room. What's realistic? He's funny, he's kind-hearted, but he has this kind of area that's underdeveloped. How do I help him develop that? Yeah. Well, you have to sit down and you have to be willing to have difficult conversations, right? And then you have to create clear agreements based on those difficult conversations, but those have to be laced in with realistic expectations. So if you have a 2-year-old child and you say, hey, do me a favor, make sure you clean up your room, is that realistic? No, because they're in a precognitive state of function. So did they actually even understand what you're talking about?
They're like, huh?
Okay. And so I think probably the thing that comes out of this most is really get clear on what your values are and be sure that you're not making your values their values. But when you have shared space, you have to be willing to have a conversation to your own benefit, because to him, why is that conversation beneficial? How is that conversation beneficial to him? Like if it's only about keeping you from being upset, then that's not a beneficial conversation to him, right?
Woo!
If it's a
Love that.
conversation that it makes you feel more safe,
Right.
then it's a beneficial conversation to him, because as a man, we crave to have the women in our lives feel safe,
That's right.
right? And so this is what I mean by living in fantasy and living in reality. And
Yeah.
reality is men like to make women feel safe, they like to produce, and they like to provide.
Yes.
Okay. And this is embedded within our nature. It's part of the masculine makeup. And so when
Yes.
you're having conversations where you want someone to take heartfelt action to your own benefit, if you're talking to a man, it has to be around producing, providing, and safety. But for emotional reasons of just keeping you from getting upset and keeping you from being emotionally charged, we don't understand that, because we are emotional beings last. We are productive, safe focusing, structure, boundary beings first.
Woo! Please tell it. And I love that. I love that you said, because y'all know I say this on the podcast all the time. I just said to someone I'm close to, I said, unfortunately, that is not how man thinks. Thanksgiving, he's trying to help, but he's just getting it done. She's like, I am telling you, that's not how we do it. I need this plate, then I need to set up this way. And I said, you might not want to say it to him like that because he's just trying to be helpful. You can say,
Yeah.
thank you for being so helpful, hun, but can you use these plates and dishes first? Or you know what? Don't worry, I got it. Because he's trying to move getting dinner along. He's being helpful, which is that provision piece. That's production. She wants design and flavor and sparkles. But become the communication of the masculine and the feminine is what's missing. How long you know this guy? He likes
Yeah.
to move things along because that's what men do. And that's why I don't know why I say, and I feel sometimes some people think it might be sexist. I'm like, men are not that complicated.
Men are very simple.
I'm a woman, and that's my belief. I believe that
Yeah.
since I was younger, and I still do. And the older I get, the more I appreciate the simplicity of men, and I love it. And a lot of times, as a female, as a woman who my goal is working and growing and embodying more of my feminine, I also hone in on some of the skills and the understanding so that my communication and my relationships are better with male. But here's the thing I have for you, that this is a personal question because people ask me this. Someone is in a conversation or they're having a conversation and then they lash out and they have an explosive moment. And
Mm-hmm.
I go and I get quiet and I listen and let them explode. And then I don't explode back. I don't hold a grudge. I'm not even mad. But maybe later on, I will point out, I say, I noticed that you've had two different occasions where you just kind of went hard. Is there something that I'm doing to irritate you? Or is there something happening with you that might be causing irritation for you to lash out? And I'm really like, cool. Now, I was not always like that, but over the last few years, I've kind of grown into that being where when people are having their moment, they're having their moment. I don't make it about myself. I'm like, they're having this release of energy, and who knows, I believe they actually need it. So I'm not going to interrupt it by causing myself to be angst or angry and feel I'm disrespected. You interrupted me. I don't have all that, and it's not a part of me anymore. How do we is that because I'm releasing expectations, or am I just allowing people to have their journey alongside me without allowing myself to impede on it? What do you think of how do you approach that?
I mean, I think that when you're really comfortable inside of yourself, you're all too willing to give other people space
Ah,
to process their feelings, their emotions, and their ideas and their experiences. And when you are tight and tense and stressed inside, you need people to be this way, look this way, sound this way, and behave this way in order for you to be okay.
Hmm.
And that for me would never be a relationship. That would be relationship. And so what I say to people is like, look, people have different temperaments.
Yeah.
And that person that gets hot is also a person who's very passionate.
Yeah.
Right. So if what you want is a really passionate person, realize that it also comes with some off gassing of heat.
Ah.
And,
Yeah.
I, like you, I like to be a chill, still lake
Yeah.
when the heat is coming down hot and fast.
Yeah.
So that I give them an opportunity to see themselves.
Yeah.
Because if I start interacting with where they're going, now I've given them all the permission in the world to justify their behavior.
Come on now. There you
Okay.
go.
And I'm happy to trigger people. I'm very happy
And
for
chill
someone to
out.
be
And
triggered
just chill out and watch them grow.
because
I
I'm
say
going to
watch
be
them.
myself. I'm going to say what I feel. I'm going to do what I think is appropriate. And I'm going to stand my ground. And if you're bothered by that, I would prefer the hot, like, than the passive aggressive, quiet and
Exactly.
disappear for 3 days.
Exactly.
Like, let your emotions flow. Oh, I can see you're struggling with this idea.
Yes.
Yes, I'm still going to my mom's house for Christmas. I know it's on the East Coast. I know you want to go up to your parents' place, but right now, my mom isn't feeling great, and that's a higher priority for me.
For me. And that's it.
And so this is non-negotiable and it's
That's right.
unchangeable. And
That's it.
so, let it out, let all your upset out, and that's okay
And we're going to
because
go right back to this is what I'm doing. And it doesn't change.
yeah, no, this is, you have to have what I call, your nuts, non-negotiable, unalterable terms.
Oh, I love it.
Because without those, then people have no idea of how to respect you.
Come on now.
Okay? But if
Yes.
you have alterable terms constantly, then people never get a sense of who it is you really are. And so then they're constantly on eggshells around you because they don't
Yes.
know if you're moving left, you're moving right, you're going up, you're going down
Yes.
because you're such a changeable unit.
Yes.
And so I think, and, because we're having kind of a deep conversation,
Yeah.
when you're looking at expectations, when you're looking at clear communication, when you're looking at clear agreements, and all these different facets of relationship, you have to be able to, one, understand who it is you are, and then be
Yes.
able to communicate that effectively
Yes.
to the people who are in your sphere of influence.
That's right.
And if someone is bothered by the truth of who you are, then you have to know that's their challenge.
Yes.
And that anyone who's upset about something, you have a co-creative aspect of that, and you
Mm.
have to be okay with people being bothered by you,
Yep.
being bothered by your choices, being bothered by your decisions, being bothered by your actions. Because you're never here to look for agreement or approval from someone else.
Thank you. Well said. He said it so well because people say it in all kinds of other ways. I love the way you said it. You're not here to do it. And I love how you articulated it. Resonated with me that, yeah. And I don't, I love to let people have their turn and they don't need it. It's easy for them to see themselves. I've seen people who have done the whole explode, and because I was still and didn't and not moving and being pushed or persuaded along the path the noise and the ranting might have required, I'm so sorry comes out. I apologize very quickly. And a lot of times I say, wait a minute, what are you apologizing for? Because sometimes people say, I'm so sorry I yelled at you, but let's think about it for a moment without us trying to have a moment of therapy. What caused you to act the way you just did that is sort of insulting to me But more so, it makes you feel bad. Let's focus on you. It makes you really feel bad because you're apologizing. And how do we prevent that from happening? If there's something I'm accountable for, I want to know. And usually it's not, but it helps to take the conversation. I don't want to have a conversation. I want you to think about it. Like I don't want to go hashing that through in that moment. And I say your apologies accepted, but then you restate what it is, the boundary that you set up, and you move forward. And sometimes it ends up, we're going to have to talk about this later. Let's reconvene, obviously, because I'm leaving. I'm not going down that rabbit hole with you. You got to sort that out. But I'm going to restate my boundary and I'm out. I'm out.
Hmm.
So, thank you so much for taking us on that journey of setting boundaries, understanding that expectations are really there and it could lead us down a path that we're not really wanting to go most of the times. And that's something we should consider how to balance them. Here's one thing that you talk about a lot, and that is accumulated stress loads.
Yeah.
Can you explain how this manifests in our lives and health, and what happens if we continue to ignore those symptoms altogether?
Yeah. Stress is building every day. Like, think about it like this: your sleep, if it is sufficient, okay, you will
Mhm.
wake up feeling rested, motivated, and inspired. Okay.
Yes.
If you wake up and you're looking for the snooze button, okay, or you wake up and you're looking to wake yourself up with exercise, or you wake up and you need some kind of stimulant, whether that
Mhm.
is
Phone, coffee.
coffee, an argument,
Ooh.
cigarette. Um, if you need these things to wake up and to feel good, then it means you feel bad. Okay, so again, if you need those things to wake up and feel good, it means you feel bad.
Even bad.
And it means, but the most important aspect of this is what it essentially comes down to is your sleep was insufficient, which
Mm.
means the stress from Monday has now made its way into Tuesday. And
Ooh.
now Monday's stress from Monday and Tuesday now makes it into Wednesday. And then Monday and Wednesday makes it into Thursday because your sleep is insufficient. Maybe it's very difficult for you to fall asleep. Maybe it's difficult for you to stay asleep. Um, and if this is the case, if you wake up with tired eyes, then that's telling you a lot. Your body's
Mm.
letting you know it is finding difficulty in recovering, in
Mm.
replenishing, and rejuvenating. And people, if they go on like this for days and weeks and months at a time, the risk is this. The risk is one of your systems, meaning one of your systemic organs, will begin to lose function. So instead
Whoa.
of functioning at 100%, now it's functioning at 95%.
Wow.
And when that happens, the body has communication with other organs. Every organ has a relationship with other organs. It has a
Mm-hmm.
relationship of balance. It has a relationship of opposition. It has a relationship of completion.
Yes.
And so, what that gives the body the opportunity to do is to rob from Peter to pay Paul. So, let's say your pancreas is heavily stressed. The first organ it's going to start to steal excessive electromagnetic energy from is the stomach. If the large intestine's too stressed, your colon, it's going to start stealing energy from the lungs. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to experience something like constipation. And maybe it only happens once every 3 weeks, right? But 2 years later, it happens twice every 3 weeks, right? And then 10 years later, it happens once a week. And then before you know it, it's happening every fourth day. And then it's
Mm.
happening every other day. And so the symptoms are the same, they just become more complex and they become more chronic. And so stress is at the root of every state of dis-ease, whether you're holistic, or disease, whether you're allopathic and in Western uh, theory. Okay? So, what I would say to people who are listening The moment you realize that you have stress, and these are your five biggest indicators. You woke up and you're tired.
Mm.
You woke up and at some point in the day you're anxious. You woke up and some point in the day you're ferociously angry. You
Wow.
woke up and at some point in the day you're on the pulpit with this intense, fiery, self-righteous attitude. Or you woke up and your mind is foggy, unclear, and your thoughts are fragmented.
Ooh,
What that lets us know is that you are suffering from complex stress disorder.
complex stress
Stress disorder.
disorder.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I termed that term. Okay?
I love that. That's deep.
So when you're suffering from complex stress disorder, the most important thing that you have to do is you have to be willing to look at the mirror in the morning after you're done brushing your teeth, and you have to ask yourself, what's really going on? And if you're willing to be honest and go, look, I'm suffering in some way, rather than glossing it over, then your body's willing to guide you. Your spirit, the universe, God is willing to send someone into your life that will
Mm.
help you reduce your lifetime accumulated stress load and help you create a lifestyle where your daily accumulated stress loads are much lower. And so humans today use what I call negative stress management tools in order
Mm.
to manage their stress. So if you're in stress management, you got to make a choice. Am I going to use positive stress management tools like meditation, breath work, exercise, creativity? Am I going to use those things, clear communication, or am I going to use nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, bar fighting, intense levels of debate and argument,
Yes.
suppression and oppression, oppressive techniques, sadistic behavior, masochistic? Like, what are you going to be using in
Yeah.
order to manage your stress? Because the stress is still going to be there.
It doesn't.
Now, the key is when you're using positive stress management tools, you know what happens? Your stress reduces.
Mm-hmm.
When you use negative stress management tools, you get a reprieve from your stress, but the
Right.
next day when you wake up, your stress load is higher.
Yeah. Ah. Wow.
Okay? And this is why substances like marijuana, cocaine, nicotine, alcohol, and one which is the most egregious substance in the world is white refined sugar and
Mm.
brown refined sugar,
Yep.
because
Yep.
they give us a reward while simultaneously hurting us.
Yes.
And yet, because we're so stimulated by the reward, it's difficult to recognize the negative effects
Absolutely.
until you start to gain some weight, until you go
Mm-hmm.
to the dentist and he says, hey, you got some teeth issues. Or you go and you're sitting with your partner and he's like, yo, your breath's a little funky. I don't know what's going on. You know, these symptoms will arise. Your brain goes a little bit more foggy, a
Foggy.
little bit more detached emotionally. So you've got to be willing to look at every single symptom in your life
Mm.
and relate that to unresolved stress. And if you're willing to do that, you can create an immediate change and impact, and you can find a system out there that you like. Look, some people, they don't want to meditate. They're never going to meditate, but they like to run. Okay.
Yes.
Some people are never going to go to a breath workshop, but they like surfing. Okay. Some people are never going to surf, but they like to do yoga. So
Right.
whatever is the thing that you like to do, replace one of those negative stress management tools with a positive stress management tool,
Wow.
right? So replace your caffeine and your nicotine with a 30-minute walk or a 15-minute walk or a 10-minute run, because both of those activities are super, super stimulating. If what you're choosing the alcohol and the sugar because you want more calm, then replace that with meditation or breath work.
Yes.
Like, replace a one for one, because no drug addict, whether they're a what I would call the daily acceptable drug addicts
Right.
or or the unacceptable daily drug addicts, right? Which
Ooh.
they have clinics for, but they don't have clinics
For sugar
for
addicts.
people who suffer from the daily acceptable drugs.
Yes.
There's no clinic you can go stay at for 6 months to deal with your smoking, right?
Right. That's
Right.
acceptable.
But they have that for alcohol, heroin, PCP, marijuana, cocaine. They already have those things in place. So
Right.
as a listener, the thing I want you to walk away with most is you're really important. Like you're super important. You're important to the universe. You're important to the galaxy. You're important to the solar system. You're important to planet Earth. Everything is evolving, and everyone plays a small part. And so, do your small part to feel as good as you can. Because when you feel good, you do good. When you feel
Yes.
bad, you do bad. And what I mean by bad is you heap more negative energy into your life than you can process in a 24-hour period, and it starts to pull your life apart, and it
Yes.
negatively impacts and affects all of your relationships, whether they're work relationships, whether they're interpersonal relationships, whether they're romantic relationships. And
Yes.
if you can't trust yourself to do good by you, how's anyone else going to trust you to do
Come
good by
on.
them?
That's right. Absolutely. Ooh, so powerful. You talk about stress resolution versus management. And we know you talked about those people, some people exercise, some people meditate. What's the difference between managing stress and resolving it? And why does resolution create a lasting change based
The
on the
re-
TBI
yeah,
principle
yeah,
methodology?
this is a good question. You have four categories, right? You have stress management, which we went over both sides of that, positive and negative. You have
Mm-hmm.
stress ignorance.
Mm.
And those are the people who are aware of the impacts of stress and are unable to feel the stress that they're under
Ooh.
because of their choice of substance to numb their brain out from feeling. Okay?
Uh,
And then you have stress resilience. But in order to get in stress resilience, you have to have stress resolution. And what I mean by that is instantaneous permanent change. And
mm.
so, in order to get into a path of stress resolution, you have to be able to resolve your lifetime accumulated stress loads. Okay? Stress management is for your daily accumulated stress
Mm-hmm.
plus your lifetime accumulated stress. Stress
Mm.
resolution is focused purely on your lifetime accumulated stress. So if you're 44 years old, 44 years of unresolved stress that you picked up from your environment, your mom and your dad, right? And so moms and fathers are always doing the best they can. But
Yes.
the challenge is this: every child's nervous system is in an open state until they reach 13 years old. The reason why is because the charge on their molecules is negative from womb until 13. At
Mm.
13, it shifts to positive. When it's positive, you start to begin to individuate
Mm.
into who it is you want to learn to be by pushing back against the ideals that your parents placed upon you. So the
Mm.
majority of lifetime accumulated stress loads that people are dealing with came from how they were being raised. And
Yes.
through the epigenetic markers passed down from their ancestors for a minimum of 4 to 7 generations. So,
Epigenetics is a whole nother conversation. That's a whole
it's a whole
nother.
nother conversation. But I'm putting it
Yes.
out there for anyone who wants to listen and do a little bit of their own investigation.
Good stuff.
So
Mhm.
now when we look at this lifetime accumulated stress load and we know it's made up of everything that I didn't resolve in this life, everything my parents handed off to me, okay, and my genetic and epigenetic predisposition. Well, if I can reduce my lifetime accumulated stress load by 50%, guess what's going to happen? Everything gets easy
Yes.
because the daily accumulated stress that I have, I'm no longer going to be attracted to. So that piece of
Mhm.
cake, it no longer looks interesting to me. It actually looks terrible. That
Exactly.
that keg of beer is unattractive. What looks good to me right now is a glass of water.
Right.
Okay? And so when your lifetime accumulated stress load is high, you're looking for substances that match your stress load.
Mm.
When your lifetime accumulated stress load reduces and is low, you're looking for substances, experiences, friendships, and relationships that match that stress load. And because now you're choosing different substances, you're choosing different foods, you're choosing a different sleep plan, you're choosing different relationships, you're choosing a different profession, you're no longer accumulating the amount of stress that you used to, and the exact opposite is happening because now you have a life full of eustress versus distress. And eustress actually raises your energy, reduces your anxiety, quiets your mind, and
Mm.
strengthens your body in terms of your structure and also physiologically, energetically, and psychically.
Wow. Whew. I am sitting in that.
And
You
that's
all,
stress resolution.
that is stress resolution. So different from what we've been taught. I feel like you said stress management is part of TBI, right?
Yeah,
But
stress.
ultimate is stress resolution and creating a lifestyle that helps you resolve that stress that comes, and you even said epigenetically, because
Yeah,
that's the stress we are experiencing that we aren't even necessarily even aware of.
absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. So we
Yeah.
have a segment that's called Flip the Script, Chris. And so just where I ask a couple questions, just like a little bit
Okay.
of a game. So your healing journey is absolutely inspiring. And for
Thank you.
we couldn't cover everything in this one episode
Yeah,
with
of course
you.
not.
And of course, you guys, we're going to tell you how to connect with Christopher. But can you share with us a mindset shift? And you did one already that allowed you to overcome physical pain, adversity that you faced. How did these experiences shape you and then ultimately everything that you do now?
Yeah,
Like, I know you've given us one already, but we're poking for another one.
I think the one that came to me, this would have been 1998. And
Mm-hmm.
I was walking from the pool. I was swimming some laps, doing a little bit of work in the pool. And as I was walking along, what came to me is that in order to stay in a continuous state of bliss, you've got to be able to shift your perspective 1 degree.
Ooh, 1 degree.
Yeah.
Shifts your perspective 1 degree. Wow.
Now, what's very interesting about that is in the human body, when you have joint pain, if you change the rotation of the bones above and below the joint 1 degree in relationship to each other, you know what happens? Your joint pain disappears. Everyone is 1 degree away from happiness. That's it.
Let me just take that in. Thinking about everything I am manifesting. 1 degree,
1 degree.
not
All it takes.
360.
No.
One.
You need 1 degree.
Oh my
One
goodness.
degree of change.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you're
That's
willing to shift your perspective 1 degree, you can stay in a continuous state of bliss. But if you're unwilling to do that, you can stay in a life filled with pain and discomfort and disconnection and disjointedness.
hmm. I mean, my mind is racing the track about what that looks like in the different areas of your life.
Yeah.
Whew, that's a whole nother episode. The other question I have for you is what is success for you? How do you define that for yourself?
I define success as my ability to be authentically expressed. Let me say it again. My ability to be authentically expressed as God designed me to be. No
Hmm.
more, no less than that.
How do you know when you're there?
Because when I'm there, I'm connected. Right? The
Mm.
actions that I'm taking are based off of the feelings and desires that I have to serve powerfully for the purpose of adding good value, equal value to myself and the people's lives that I'm in.
Mm, I love that. It's so deep. I'm soaking that in. I'm like, my brain has to go through layers of processing.
With me, yes.
That's good. Good stuff. Oh my goodness. This one is a bonus because I gotta ask before we do mindset bites to go. Who do you work with and how do you serve?
How do I work with? I work with a lot of the people that I started working out with were people who were simply, they were in discomfort.
Mm,
And, you know, that was the journey in the beginning. And as I learned more and I became more,
mhm,
the people that were attracted to the work that I was doing were looking more towards elevating all aspects of their life. So the people that I work with are people who have been suffering and no longer want to suffer, and
mhm.
people who want to push the edge of human development.
Mm.
Because I am the godfather of biohacking. Like, I was doing this 30 years before anyone even understood it.
Yay. I am honored to meet you because I want to do some biohack. I believe biohacking is right. They talk a lot about quantum leaping these days, but
Yeah.
I'm like, biohacking first. I think you'll
Yes.
quantum leap very.
1000%.
It'll be
That
like
is the implicate order.
you know what I mean? It just comes with it. It's part of the
Yeah.
package.
You
If
have
you
to,
want to quantum
because
leap, yeah.
if your biology is off, your psychology is off. If your biology is off, your emotionality is off. If your
Yes.
biology is off, your spirituality is off.
Mm, because that's our vehicle.
That's it. Whatever's in your body's in your life.
Yes.
If you want to change your life, you have to change your body. And
Come
it's
on.
different than being fit.
Come on.
Talking about it has to be intelligent,
Yes. That
right? Anyone
whole,
who's in pain has a
whole
dumb body,
right.
right? Your body, how do we know it's dumb? Because your body does not heal.
Right.
Only dumb bodies don't know how to heal. What makes a dumb body? Excessive stress, excessive tension, excessive distortion. High levels of lifetime accumulated stress, high levels of daily accumulated stress makes your body dumb.
We're not talking about this enough.
No.
We're not. I definitely want to do a live episode with you when we're ready to put out this episode. Love to do a live, social media live with you because
Yeah, that
more
sounds
people need
great.
to listen to this and
Anything.
actually tap into your work.
You're wonderful. I like the place you're coming from.
Thank you.
I like how you break things down. I like how you have the ability to relate deeply. And, you know, you soak things in. And you're very excitable. You're very passionate about what you're doing. It's a great privilege to be sitting here with you.
Thank you so much. I do this for me too. I tell individuals this podcast is as much as it is for me. I started off with a vision to share what I've learned and welcome a conversation worldwide that with anyone who's listening to just chat back. And then it became where I have guests of the privilege of people saying, hey, would you put this one on? And I'm like, that is more because I get to learn from them. I get to figure out who my next mentor, teacher, and facilitator is through this journey, you know, based on where I am and where I'm growing. So it's for me, it's for all of us. And I'm just honored. So, and I'm curious and I'm, you know, I always talk about growing and glowing. So it's a body, mind. Yeah. Growing and glowing. And every time I get on behind this computer, I get more. And so you definitely just kind of, besides igniting a portion of me, it's sort of telling me I'm on track where I'm going. So biohacking, guys, the Godfather is here and he is going to give us mindset bites to go. Christopher, this is where I step away from the microphone and the camera and I let you give words that if it were your last time to say something to the world, what would you say? So here I go. Mute.
Life is short. Learn to love yourself. Honesty is the pathway forward. Every secret you have creates secretions. that cause you to attract more of what you don't want. Have fun and be kind.
That made me want to start a whole new episode. each little pinpoint you gave us there, each little bite was like a whole another episode. But we have to be disciplined. And so, Christopher, can you tell us how we can connect with you and tap into TBI and all the wonderful work you're doing?
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is at truebodyintelligence.com. The book is there that I wrote, Free for Life, the Navy SEAL's Unique Path to Inner Freedom and Outer Peace. And then you could go to Instagram. And Instagram, you would punch in Christopher Lee Maher, that's M-A-H-E-R. I give a download every other day about some aspect of stress or some actionable step that you can take that's easy to implement and would add good value to your life. So if you want inspiration and education and motivation through someone who's only giving you advice based off the advice that they honor themselves, yes, and you want someone who's congruent to help lead you back into health and a high state of mental wellness, then check me out. I'd love to help you in any way that I can.
And we will definitely have his Instagram and the TBI website in the bio wherever you're listening and watching to this episode. Christopher, you've been such a phenomenal guest. Again, so much to learn, and I hope to have you back in the future for another episode. I believe there's going to be a couple episodes that I just send you a quick email and a message and say, hey, you want to chat about this? Because I know I'll be digging through layers and be like, oh, you should have asked this. Oh, you should have asked that. But again, as he said, tons of information on his social media, Instagram. And his TBI website is a beautiful, alluring one as well. I've played around there a little bit before, and there's so much for me to dive into. I think he also has the book as well. It's on Amazon. I think you have a mailing list as well that we can.
Yeah, and I have an online course called The 8 Stepping Stones to Inner Freedom, which, if you want to really start to begin the work and start transmuting your generational stress that was passed off to you, then that would be the way to go.
That's the one I'm getting, guys. That's where I'm getting started with Christopher's work, because I absolutely know what stress can do to the mind, body, and ultimately the soul, and it can push disable buttons. Chris explained it so well that it just starts to break down a little bit, and then you get these little sparks and then boom, things shut down. I've been there, I've recovered, and still a lot more work and room to grow. So I'm definitely going to be taking that course. Christopher, again, thank you so much for being with us on Mindset Mastery Moments. You're part of the family. We're part of your tribe now. So we're not going to let you go. But we were going to also keep your name and your work ringing through the hallways of what we do at MM360. We do have a global movement, and we're doing a Mind and Body Wellness Summit, guys, in April. We're planning that, and I'm going to ask Christopher to be a part of it, because that's...
Oh, it sounds great.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Okay.
All right, disruptors, you heard it here. Go to the truebodyintelligence.com, and remember that your mindset is definitely the key to your success. And here we learned today, we're going to add on that your body and your health will also help to facilitate that powerful mindset. So let's start working and healing and growing together. Until next time, we'll see you again. Bye-bye.